In today's episode, a look back at the Win with AI Summit. Full disclosure, I am an IBM Champion, and my company is an IBM Registered Business Partner, so we do receive financial benefit if you do happen to buy something from IBM. The Win with AI Summit was a combination event. The first half of it was for IBM business partners to understand what was coming down the pike. And then the second half was sort of a public event where people could see and hear about some of the use cases. There were two product lines that IBM focused on, and I think both of them have profound positive implications for anyone who is a data-driven marketer, or, well, frankly, for anyone who's data-driven, period. The first product line is Watson Studio. There have been a number of advances since Studio deployed in March. I've been using it since March when it was announced at IBM Think, and I like Studio. It's a good environment, especially if you want to be using modelers rather than writing code. So one of the main advantages of Studio is that if you know the architecture that you're going after, whether it's statistical in nature, where you'll be using the SPSS modeler, or it is machine learning and deep learning in nature, where you'll be using the neural network modeler, as long as you know what you're doing conceptually, you can drag and drop the pieces of the statistics you want to do right in the interface. You don't have to write code, and then you just plop the output into the system and feed your data in, and it does its thing, and you come up with results, which again is a great way for somebody who doesn't necessarily know how to write code in R or Python to be productive in machine learning, deep learning, statistics, etc. But most marketers don't need the full power of public cloud, which is the cloud environment in which Watson Studio lives in. And there are a few quirks in the system here and there, particularly when you're moving files in and out, or when you're moving in large amounts of unstructured data. But one of the major announcements was that Watson Studio is coming to the desktop as a desktop application. And it will function as a native app, which means that it's not just a window that goes to the browser version, which you just fire up the browser version, but it will actually be a full native application with the ability to use files locally, which makes me very happy because, again, that's much faster. You can use it with the same ease of use that you'd use a spreadsheet application, or that you would use your email on your desktop, and that's phenomenal because I look forward to being able to roll that out to customers, to the team at Trust Insights, and to partners to say, hey, we've built this model using this combination of techniques, and while the model may be proprietary, if everyone's on the same platform, we can pick the model up and move it around. And even if a customer doesn't necessarily have Studio Desktop because it's all one code base, we'll be able to take that model and just give it to them to run in a cloud environment. The net benefit of this is faster algorithms, faster machine learning models, faster deep learning models. It's fewer errors because, again, you're not slinging raw code, you're slinging abstracted code in models. And more portability, being able to get to answers and let other people who are not hardcore coders get to answers too. So I think that's going to be a major leap forward for the platform. It's going to also normalize stuff like the data science experience and make it all one uniform experience, which will be good. The other thing that was really interesting about the event from the Watson Studio perspective is that I actually got to sit down with the distinguished engineer who built a substantial part of it, which is something that doesn't often happen. And it's one of the things I love about working with IBM is that you get to talk to the people who are actually making the product and say, well, why does it do this? And I showed the engineer one thing last night, and he's like, huh, I shouldn't do that. Give me your email. I'm going to send a bug report in on this. which is fantastic because we want the product to be better. We want the product to be usable by everybody. We want our customers and our clients to be able to use the product as well and iterate on what we do. So Watson Studio, a lot to look forward to there. And again, I'm really looking forward to that desktop app, the ability to share my work and my ideas with my team and have them not only just make suggestions, but actually be able to jump in and reorder concepts. That way they can spend their time on the strategy and the implementation and not the how do I code this? What's the function for this? Am I missing a semicolon here? Things that get in the way of right now. The second major announcement was it really was around what they call Cloud Private for data, which is an abstraction layer for those folks who have been in the IBM ecosystem for a while as developers and know what used to be called Bluemix is now just called IBM Cloud. There was a service debuted 2 years ago, I think, called Bluemix Lift, which said, let's take your databases wherever they are and pick them up and move them into the cloud. And it was a relatively quiet product. Not too many people knew about it. But what IBM has done since then is convert this thing to this thing called Cloud Private for Data, which is an abstraction layer that allows you to have a cloud-like environment for your databases, but it doesn't require you to pick up and move the databases, because for a lot of companies, particularly ones in highly regulated industries, you can't move your database into the cloud. You are forbidden to do so. There may be geographic restrictions, there may be security restrictions, and so on and so forth. So wouldn't it be great to be able to have an environment in which you simulate that the benefits of it, the being able to access all of your data at once in one spot, but not have to deal with the regulations. And that's what Cloud Private for Data promises. In the marketing world, there's this concept, and there's some companies that do this. They're called a customer data platform. And the idea being that your customer data is everywhere, right? You've got social media data, you've got email data, you've got CRM data, marketing automation data. You've got all this stuff in all these different systems all over the place. And because all the systems are scattered everywhere, some are on-premise, like your CRM or your ERP system. Some of them are in the cloud. Some of them are not even really databases, like your Twitter analytics. Yeah, Twitter has the database, but you don't. Because everything is everywhere, you don't really have a good sense of your customer, right? The promise is called like one view of the customer, or a 360-degree view of the customer, which has been a popular thing for a number of years. These companies, these CDP platforms, promise to bring all that in, use their proprietary mix of machine learning data, whatever, to try and unify those customer records, and give you like, hey, here's the thing. But there are issues with, obviously, regulation, with compliance, with governance, with data governance around these systems, and they're not cheap for the ones that are hosted services, and they're not easy for the ones that are on-premise services or private cloud services. I was working with one customer not too long ago, looking at the inner workings of their platform. They had built it themselves. It was a little messy, and it wasn't working really well. And what they needed was strong data governance, the ability to say, like, let's set some rules about this data, where it came from, how it can be used, how it should be used, and what the logical outputs are. What Cloud Private for Data does is essentially that. It's an ingestion engine. It is a unification service that you configure the rules for us. Say, hey, this is related to this, powered by machine learning and some deep learning, because one of the things it does is it tries to use deep learning to build semantic relationships between tables. So if one table has Chris Penn and the other table has Christopher Penn, it understands there's a semantic relationship between the two. They're closely related, and will auto suggest, hey, you should probably link these things together. And it also brings it in natural language querying. So if you, instead of having to write SQL statements, although there's nothing wrong with SQL statements, I like them, your average non-technical user is not someone who is fluent in the SQL language, the structured query language. They are good at asking regular questions like, how many people signed up for our services yesterday? That would be the kind of question that a business user would ask. And Cloud Private for Data allows you to ask regular, normal questions as well as see all your data in real time. What I think is so powerful about it is the governance. You write rules in the system that govern things like data sovereignty. Where did this data come from, and where is it allowed to go? What is or is not protected health information, personally identifiable information, sensitive personal information, all the different categories that we have to deal with as marketers and as business people to say, like, yes, we can use this data, no, we can't use this data. Where can the data transit? So if you are still working on your GDPR compliance, you need to know, like, yes, I will permit this data to move to here or from here. No, I will not permit this data to go here. So, for example, if you are working with EU folks, people within the European Economic Area, you have a very specific set of rules about what you may and may not do with that data. And Cloud Private for Data allows you to write those rules, but then it converts those rules into system policies that you can auto manipulate the data with. For example, if you are using data from machine learning to better understand the customer and do forecasting, and you've got this huge data set from the EU, unless the consumer explicitly gave you permission to use that data for machine learning, you have to de-identify it. You have to anonymize it. Right now, I can't think of a single customer data platform service that will do that in compliance with the rules, but still permit you access to the models. In Cloud Private for Data, you set up the policy, you set up the rule, and the rule triggers the software to de-anonymize all the personally identifiable columns, and even with permissionless, may or may not even allow certain people within your organization even access to the data. But for your data science team or your marketing data team would get the de-identified data set. They would not get the raw data set. And then they could do machine learning predictions on stuff that is not personally identifiable, like time on page or number of tweet replies or whatever, but they have no idea who the person is. And so the data is then being used in compliance with GDPR and still not inhibiting your ability to do business. One of the quotes I heard yesterday, which I thought was phenomenal, was the more sensitive and personal the information is, the less useful it is for machine learning, because you're not able to draw strong trends and forecasts and predictions on uniquely individual things. If you had my social security number, there is zero predictive power in that number, but knowing that I am identify as male, that's a much bigger, broader aspect, and that is probably a better predictor than my social security number. So the less personal data you have, you're probably better off removing that data anyways. So having Cloud Private for Data either mask it, de-identify it, or prohibit access to it is going to be a good thing. And then, of course, being IBM, you can take all the data that you do build in Cloud Private for Data and pass it to things like Watson Studio for that modeling, for that advanced machine learning and deep learning. And so having the two work together, but still, the quote was yesterday, move your AI to your data rather than trying to move your data to your AI. Move your AI to your data. Make the AI live close to the data. That's an important idea because it lets you and it lets the people who work in your organization do the analysis where the data lives, not screw up the data, and really apply that strong governance to it. That all the identification, the quality of the data. And so wrapping up, these two products, Cloud Private for data, which unifies your data, and it's going to take you some work. It's not a magic wand. It will take you some work to get it implemented well. But Cloud Private for data, and then Watson Studio, and then the Watson machine learning platform, sort of the machine learning engine, really paint a picture of you being able to take your data, clean it, manipulate it, prepare it for machine learning, pass it to Watson Studio, and then you being able to drag and drop your way to working models. As long as you know what you're doing conceptually, it will save you a substantial amount of time, and then be able to immediately hand that off for business usage. It's the best analogy I can think of is that IBM has significantly decluttered your kitchen, right? Instead of having 44 different types of frying pan and 37 spatulas, you've now got maybe a half dozen of each. And it's easier to find things, it's easier to do things. You do still need to know how to cook. But the kitchen is much neater, and the kitchen is much easier to use than it used to be. So, I extend my thanks to the business partner team, to the social VIP team, and to the champion team at IBM for having me at the event, and for letting me and my fellow partners and stuff work with the software, actually do hands-on, and let us talk to the people who are building the thing and ask very, very technical questions of them. And I would strongly recommend that if you are interested in data unification, if you are interested in machine learning, that you try out these services. As a registered business partner, Trust Insights is happy to make whatever introductions need to be made to an IBM team, and we'll help you build the models if it's appropriate to do so. But there's so much to be optimistic about. There's so much to be excited about with where machine learning is going, where AI is going, and how much easier it's getting and how much more accessible it's getting for everyone, not just for the super technical folks. So I hope you give it a try. And as always, if you have questions or comments about this, leave it in the comments on wherever it is you're seeing this video, or reading the transcript, or listening to the audio. And please subscribe to the YouTube channel and the newsletter. And I'll talk to you soon. Take care.
If you want help with your company's data and analytics, visit braintrustinsights.com today and let us know how we can help you.